universe, universe, if I need to do this, this, and this, and you want me to do this, turn the closet light on. And the light flipped on.
Welcome to the James Granstrom podcast, Super Soul Model Series, where I'm interviewing Tracy Clark this week. Tracy is a phenomenal human being and is incredibly intuitive, incredibly insightful. She's been on the show before and she's absolutely amazing. And we've just been having a chat about structure versus intuition and about how life and the world has often had decent structures that are now crumbling. And Tracy is coming from a viewpoint where we need to sort of flow through structures that are old paradigms that are breaking down. And the reason why they break down is because there's quite a great deal of rigidity and inflexibility. And if we want to evolve as human beings, evolve into greater happiness, health, wellness, and prosperity, it means that we can't stick with the old programs that are old paradigms or old programs that no longer work in this modern world. We need to adapt, we need to adjust, which means that we need to learn how to flow. We need to learn how to trust our intuition. So Tracy, talking about intuition, talking about this intuition versus rigidity and these old paradigms, just remind us what you mean by that.
Well, like we were saying, if you look at the world, like a round world, right? Everybody's inside and there's asleep, they're maybe ignorant, because it keeps you asleep, right? Fear keeps you asleep and it keeps you ignorant and it keeps you rigid. But if you can picture a round circle and everybody's in that circle on earth, right? And just for yourself, and then picture yourself, you've now woken up. So now you're awake, you're questioning the narrative. Now you're outside of the circle. Well, when you're outside of the circle, you're connected to the vastness of that, whatever the God of your understanding is, the universal energy, whatever you want to call it. Well, now that's huge because now you're starting to learn, wait a minute, what structures don't work for me? Which structures do I need to change? And you start questioning the structures. Then your name called, right? Your name called like a conspiracy theorist, or your name called a crazy person, or that doesn't work because that energy is trying to get you back in the circle versus
so basically fear's
outside.
getting us back in the circle, and it's when we choose to step out the circle by thinking
Faith
freely,
and being
free
free.
thinking and
Yeah.
faith, and what else?
Trusting in yourself. Like that's out there because now you got to trust in your intuition. You got to trust in yourself because the narrative and the schooling that you had is gone now, right? You're out here and you're like, but that didn't work for my life. I didn't create the money I wanted. I didn't create the relationship I wanted. And I have anxiety or all these feelings that come up. So you get that awareness when you step out of the box. But now you're sitting there. So now you have a bigger perception that's coming in about what is really unfolding inside that circle. And that's a scary place for a lot of people to be because they're like, well, where do I go next? What do I do next? Because it's not in the structure that we're taught. That's where your intuition starts to kick in. Go here, meet with these people, start to learn, take what resonates with you.
So how do you wake up from being in the circle? That circle of what you were calling like fear versus faith,
Faith.
perhaps.
I call it faith because it's like when you're in faith, you have to trust, know, believe in yourself. You got to trust, know, believe in your connection. And you and I know that when you're trust, knowing, believing, you're like, you're going like this. You're blind. It's like being in a dark room. It's a feeling, like I did a podcast recently and somebody said, I can tell I can never take you off your path because like you're so clear. And I said, because the miracles that were done in my life, no one can waver that from me. Like no one can take that away because I lived it and I see it. People can say what they want. You will never change my mind with connection to spirit because you cannot explain the things that unfold in my life. So that is when you're over here, you get to the conviction. But when you're also over there, how do you get there? The same way you got there, the same way I got there was like, wait a minute. What's that you just feel? It's a feeling of, I've tried a lot of this stuff and I know my life isn't going in the direction I want.
Yeah.
And you do naturally start questioning. For me, it was healthcare system. Other people, it's banking system. Other people, it's relationships. There's something that hits the bottom that you go, enough. This is not working. And it's a feeling, and you start questioning everything and you start looking. And we've been there. And when you start questioning, that's how you get out of the box. But when you're on the other
Yeah.
side, a lot of times what happens is here they try to pull you back, friends, family, people like, don't go over there. No, 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 because they don't understand it. And they need you back in the fear camp to validate their fear.
Okay, so most people, without them realizing, have a lot of fear and they don't even know it because they're just in the circle. So a bit like the Truman Show, you don't know that there's a
Yeah.
world outside the Truman Show. There's something I just wanted to share with you that I really like about some people that, just like remind me of this truth, like simple
Yeah.
people that people know of, right? And then you've got to sort of draw it back into your own experience. Like I watched a little interview with Arnold Schwarzenegger the other day. He goes, someone asked him, I think it was Jay Shetty, I can't remember, but Jay asked him, he goes, what is the best advice you've ever been given or you could ever give? He goes, believe in yourself, which means you're stepping outside the circle.
Mhm.
He goes, what's the worst advice you've ever been given? He goes, you can't do that.
Yeah. Truth.
And I was like, wow, okay, that's a different perspective. But there's a guy who's gone through 3 different careers in his lifetime, and he was the always considered you can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Truth.
so when I look in my own experience, the questioning of stepping out the fear, not to say that I don't get anxiety or I don't get fear or I don't feel different emotions, because that's not
We
true.
all do. Yeah.
But what I do want to say is I remember waking up when I asked, there's got to be something else going on here because this just does not make any sense anymore after a car crash. And then after, going out drinking too much, I was like, this can't be the only way to live. There has to be another way. And if there is, I got to know. And then you start to wake up and new material comes into your experience. With you is with healthcare or in a business or in a corporate company, like it just does not make sense that this is the only way. There has to be a way that is more in flow with who you are.
Yeah. Because when we're born, if you look, we're conditioned every step of the way. Like you go to school, you get a job, you pay your taxes, you pay your bills. Like that's a conditioning, and then your family paradigm. So yeah, and you're gonna also like people have to understand. You know this when we do something new. There's also fear behind that because the universe doesn't know the difference of our emotions. It's a vibration, right? So it can also read fear, the universe, as excitement. It can read it as the same way. So we feel fear, but it's also, we have to reverse it. It's probably excitement that you're venturing on something different. You don't know if it's going to work out. It's like a dark room, like we said, where you're just feeling your way around, but so you keep going. And sometimes people do confuse fear with excitement on a new path because
Mm.
it's just the unknown. If we were taught to be comfortable with the unknown, watch what would happen. Like that world would open up.
Yeah, I mean, this comfortable thing is really interesting because I've been going through a period of being really uncomfortable
For
with a lot of
sure.
new going on in my life. But my heart says you must go or you
Yeah.
want to go this way
Yeah.
because the idea of comfort or my old life does just not excite me at all.
No, but see, there's a difference when I say comfort. So I'll use this with comfort and trigger because I said this someone the other day.
Okay.
I said comfortable is comfortable in your spirit, like you said. It's
Yeah.
not necessarily comfortable moving through it. It's like you just said with your heart, but
Yeah.
going through it is uncomfortable because we have to get uncomfortable to get to a new level. It's like when people are in,
100%. I just want to say
right?
say that again because that is huge.
Yeah,
You've got to
you
be
have
uncomfortable
to
to
get
get
to
to
a
a
new
new level.
level. So if you are, and this is like relationships, we say this people in relationships, if you meet a new partner and it's like really comfortable, like I mean, like your whole everything, chances are you didn't elevate. They're very similar to whatever you had before. If you meet a new person and that you apply this to your whole life, and you're like, what is that? Is that what's going on here? Right? You're uncomfortable, but you've leveled up and now you're in a different energy. So we have to get uncomfortable, be comfortable again, and then we'll elevate again. But it's in the heart, you just know. So there's two vibrations going on.
Yeah, this is really important actually because your heart knows, but your emotions may say something else. So
Yes.
your heart knows that this is right, but it doesn't stop you feeling anxious, frustrated, unsure, maybe a bit of doubt.
Hmm.
But your heart, in your heart, you're like, I know this is right.
And that's the faith, right? Because you're following what the heart's saying,
Right.
not the emotions of the body, but the body has to go through the emotions so it can elevate up into the new energy. Because when the body goes through the emotions, it's letting go of the old energy to bring you into the new energy.
Right. So we're really trying to go back into the heart again and again and again. Because when I've ever looked through some of the changes I've had to go through, or anybody listening, right? When you look at your changes that you go through, and I know this was the case for you because you had like so many things happening in your younger years, your formative years. When that change happens, it's uncomfortable, and you're like, okay, here we go again. Then you go again. You're like, okay, and again. But you always look back with pride, or you look back with, you know, a sense of like, wow, I managed to move through that, even though it's super challenging. You feel stronger, you feel more invigorated, you feel like you've got you've got more power in your pocket.
But you also, for me, it anchored in my connection with my version of faith, which I always say is trust, no believe, because I I realized when I look back, I couldn't explain how that happened or how I came through it. It just happened. So then that
Yes,
anchored in that there was a bigger presence than me guiding me. And the more I leaned into that, the more my intuition came on stronger, the
sure.
more I was able to manifest. And this is what people have to listen to, that that's the greatest relationship that we are not taught when we're little, is what, not religiously, not any of that. What is your sacred connection to the divine? Your sacred
Yeah.
connection is different than mine, but it's all beautiful. They can look similar, but it's unique to each and every one of us.
So how does Tracy get in touch with that feeling of trusting in the divine again and again and again, especially when you're being pulled into an uncomfortable place? Because whether, you know, you might be transitioning through a relationship or elevating that relationship,
Yeah.
maybe you're, you know, you're thinking about your work and you're wanting to change your work and you feel like you're
Yeah.
being called to something else,
Yeah.
you know, or your health in one way or another. How does Tracy, where did she begin
You know
that
what I
relationship?
started in the early days, and people probably laugh. I had some very stern words at times with spirit, like
I have as
yelling
well.
stern.
Yeah. You
But
normally get on your knees or you
right?
swear or you like, look, you know.
Yeah, very true. But it became a constant conversation, which is still is today. Is so there's two parts that now, if anyone
Yeah,
can just take it, it's easy, but it's a dialogue. It's show me the sign of this, show me the truth about this, I need clarification on this, but you're asking spirit and you're actually becoming aware to look for them. You can't just say it and like, okay, I'm gonna go to work and forget it. You have to become conscious to be aware and go, oh my gosh, I asked for this and somebody brought me this information, okay, I'm going to ask for a little bit more clarification. But the other space where I say to people is it's very important, however they need to do it. I go into what I call weightlessness now, and that's what usually I teach is go out of the heart, an exercise to go into the head, so the body becomes very weightless. You feel very free. People do it in different ways of meditation, whatever they do. I like to do it instantly. I'm kind of one of those people that just like, okay, let's just go. So you train the body to do it. And then,
yeah.
but when you're in the weightless space, there's a different communion that happens and a conversation with your spirit space. And that energy brings clarity. And that energy allows you to also get answers quicker so you can move through something faster. So when I started having conversations and say, I need the truth on this, and I see the truth on this, and then I started changing my words. So in the end, the beginning was I need to see the truth in this, and now it's I know the truth around this, and I know that it's here now, and I know how to act upon it. By saying that, it's like no, right? We brought in the presence.
Let me write this down because this is important. So you're just
Yeah,
switching your words around. You're switching your words around about saying, instead of I want to know the truth,
it's like
or
I
I
know the
I
truth about
know the truth.
this. So I'll ask spirit, I'm like, show me the truth about blah 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 blah. But then, and then when I go into weightlessness, I'm like, or when I go into my space, I'm like, I know the truth around this. Maybe somebody's creating some money. It's like they could be like, I love created understand that I have this in my space and that this happened. Like, you know how you talk it out loud? You know, people say, I want or I need, like all of that kiboshes it. You and I know that. But if you're talking to spirit, like you're living it. But I mean like talking it, not just thinking it. Like if you're going through a meditation or clearing, start talking it. Even if you're out in your world, it's like, you know, I had a lady who said she wanted to get married, but she didn't have a partner. So what I said to her is like, what are you was like, wow, I had the best wedding ever. And thank you, spirit, that I know I understand and I love that I had the most incredible wedding that I couldn't even imagine before, but it was beautiful. And she went into this whole thing and she ended up meeting the person she wanted and she ended up getting married with that space that she ended up bringing in. Right.
So,
So,
for people listening, you've got to say it as if it's already done. Simple.
but
As if it's
convicted.
already done with
Yeah.
conviction.
And you're
But
living
if
it.
you don't have that conviction yet,
Keep
how do you get to
asking.
that position?
It's like building a muscle. It's keep trusting and it's keep asking and it's keep moving through. So you ask, you tell what you need, but then you go into your conviction mode. And it's you're not going to get a six pack one time. It's not going to
No.
happen. So it's training the muscle, it's training the energy and how you communicate. And you will change some of those words. But then it's a feeling, right? That's why I say if you go into weightlessness or meditation and you're repeating these things that are there, what happens is the body lifts up and it's like there's this whole beam of energy that just goes out like this. And it's so freeing. And it's that point of weightlessness where you feel it in the body that the heart can connect into what you're asking to bring in as well. So it's like a cord that gets stronger because
Yeah.
now you're removed. You're very neutral and you're free. So the reason I say weightlessness is people can feel what that feels like.
Because in weightlessness, there's zero resistance.
Exactly. Yeah.
I remember being on the beach in Hawaii one afternoon and I just dreamt something up and it happened that evening, like instantly. And I felt completely, as you said, weightless. And
Yeah.
I actually felt whilst on the beach, I said, something happened there.
Yeah.
Something happened there. And it
Yeah.
happened that evening.
Yes.
And as I met somebody that evening and I was like, oh my God. And I was
Right.
like, wow. And this was like quite a few years ago. And it was one of the first times when I actually felt like there's nothing happening in my body. Now, we're
Yeah.
all capable of doing this, but you've got to put yourself in the position, as Tracy's saying, where you're like totally relaxed, totally weightless.
And you've got to be able to take time to do it. Like a lot of times when we're wanting to evolve or create, people do want it now. We can have now. But then there's distractions that we've all allow our body to go into, right? And so we allow our
Mm.
daily life to become the distraction. And I do this morning and night. There's not a day that I don't do it before I get out of bed and when I go to bed. And then I have conversations. Like if you're in my house and they had hidden cameras, they'd be like, oh, that lady talks all day long, what, to her animals, to herself? Like what's happening? Because I'm in my home and I'm just having conversations with spirit nonstop. If you're in your car, have conversations with spirit.
So,
Like,
what's a normal conversation that you might have with spirit that, might just start people having conversations with their spirit, right? Because
yeah,
we're aspects of the divine, we're aspects of the same
correct.
thing. We're only a
Yep.
small portion of that
Hmm.
beautiful big light.
Yeah.
We might as well use that beautiful bigger version of ourselves that can see from an eagle eye perspective,
Yeah.
more than what we can see with our own physical eyes, and tune and tap into that. And what I love is that I have my way of doing it, you have your
Yeah.
way of doing it, but I
Yeah.
would like to know your way of doing it in a
Yeah.
fun way that might inspire someone to go, look, I'm going to start having conversations. Even though I
Yeah.
might not be able to see it, I might be able to, as Tracy say, feel it.
Yeah. Well, even if you're walking around your house and you're like, I love my healthy, strong body and I understand how I've been able to create it. And then you might say, you know what, Spirit, I'm a little pissed off because I haven't got the information right now. I don't feel I've connected right now. Like maybe you're having that kind of conversation and then you're coming back. Sometimes it's like, so there's something I'm going to say here, and maybe this will help people to understand. There's an old teaching, and most people don't understand it. It's through the religious line, and people will always hear they hear this teaching about it's follow me, follow me, follow me. And I was teaching this recently because, and when people hear follow me, right away their brain goes to, oh, you're following a prophet, or you're following a guru, or you're following a person, or you're following Jesus, or you're following, right? Because it's all religious kind of way it was.
Sure.
That's not what it meant. Follow me, when you hear that, is follow the divine God of your understanding energy, universal energy that's inside of you already. So when you hear that, follow me, it's like, follow me, like inside you to open up more. So
Yeah.
sometimes I say to people, if you're confused or you're feeling like, is this present? Because the presence is already inside of you. You can say, okay, follow me, follow me. Right. I'm following my higher self. I'm following my connection. I'm following me, which will change the perception. So when you're walking around or you're home or you're in your car, you might be saying, you know what, spirit, I'm following you, which is yourself, right? So please open that road and please move this and please leave this out of my space. Please move the traffic. Please allow this drive to be easy. Oh, right. You can start there because that's going to shift the brain. The next one is the drive is easy. Leave, go. Everything's open. Thank you, spirit. And so you're having a conversation that's very direct. The reason I
Yeah.
say some people will go to the other ones, like, please do this, like, we never really want to ask because it's already done, but it has to shift the brain. Sometimes people can't go right into, oh, there's a dark energy in there. Just leave, get out, just go. They're not that convicted. So it breaks another barrier. So if you're the person that's like, you're still a people pleaser or you're not sure, you might use that language. That's okay at first. Don't beat yourself up. Then it's
Just
like,
yeah.
drive is easy. I'm opening this up. This we're going to move. So a lot of times when I'm in, I'm like, okay, spirit, we're going to move this. We have to align this. We're changing this. We need to do this. And, whatever the situation is, and then it's like giving little orders, your orders. And then when you're coming back, you're like, okay, yeah, I make this every month. I have this in my life. I love this. This is what's coming next. So whatever your dreams are, that's where you would then bring it back into reality.
So the conviction is basically for sure like working a muscle.
Yeah, 100%.
So there's a couple of things that I really resonate with what you're saying. Number one, I call it like, it's part of the hero's journey or the heroine's journey of yourself.
Yeah.
Follow me means the highest version of you that you're, it's your future self and your present self, like combining, right?
Correct.
Um, and that is the part of you that you are really seeking more than anything else, the best version of yourself,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
which might always be a few steps away,
Yeah.
but you're catching up with it the whole time. And that is the person you seek. It's not somebody else. It's not a guru. It's not that.
Mm-hmm.
It's you.
Yeah.
And then the
Yeah.
second part, which really, touches me because it's part of my message, is the mind, body, and soul's wellness.
Mm-hmm.
If you miss one of those three of that triad of well-being, you've missed it.
Yeah.
Because I got my body in amazing shape, but my mind was all over the place. And then I
Mm-hmm.
was like, okay, so it was only by meditation that my mind began to become a bit clearer and I could hear spirit. And then I was like, oh my golly, right, now I've got all three. This is keeping me well. And I'm like, now I talk to God as you do, or the universe, all the time.
Yeah.
But I do it in a way which is similar to you, but, like I have to feel like I am speaking with sincerity, like I care.
100%.
And that
100%.
sincerity allows me to tap into the heart. Now, that wasn't something that I felt like I used to do growing up, but it was something that I became as I was humbled by life by making bad choices.
Right.
I felt like, you know what, I think I need to be kind to myself and I need to, speak to that creator within me or that's around me
Yeah.
in a way that I'd like to be spoken to. So I started saying things with sincerity. And I remember, never forget a story that I read in a little book called A Deep Breath of Life, which I understand you just got that book as well, which I really love. And it's
Lovely.
about this, one of the stories on one of the daily quotations or prayers or whatever. It's about this little kid and the little kid saying, "Dear God, please help me say my ABCs because I'm finding it really tough." Versus somebody who said, "Oh, I need this, this, and this." But the sincerity of the little kid, his answer was given really, really quickly, meaning he was given like the extra nudge because that was coming from a place of sincerity.
Yeah.
And I
And
noticed this,
humility,
and
right?
humility,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And when you start to get a bit cocky, you can get slapped, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you ever notice that you're coming from there, you might be coming from a little bit of ego and you might be coming from a place of a lack of humility and you might have to be humbled a little bit.
And there's a
And that's just,
strength and a conviction in how you can say your words to command what you desire for your space.
yeah.
But, I want to share this. They're showing this when you said this with humility.
Okay.
I had this dream I've never forgotten about. It's probably about 8 years ago. And I was waiting to go speak on this stage in the dream. And there was a little man beside me. And there was all these people that were on this stage. And they were like, I was irritated. I'm like, how are people listening? Like there was such a big presence of just, like you said, like ego. Like we know when we see different things. It was just like, and I was getting irritated. He said, just don't worry about them. Don't worry about them. Cause I'm like, these people aren't going to want to hear what I have to say. Cause it was kind of like a similar thing that we're talking about right now.
Right.
And I said, they wouldn't want. He's like, just you're here, your turn, go. So then I went, they went off. Yeah. And I look and it's like one of those big stadiums that goes up like this. So there's thousands of people. And at the top, there were 4 balls of fire that were coming down to the stage. And on a stage, you have the stairs that go up and down right on each side to go up
Yeah.
and down the
Yeah.
stage. The little old man, so all these people, they stood up and they were like in panic. And I knew a lot of them that were in there. The little old man grabs me and we go flying down the stairs and he goes on top of me. And all of a sudden, and you could smell the burning like in the room. Like it was crazy. And I get up, everybody's charred. Like I'm like freaking out, right? And I look at him. I'm like, what happened? He said, looked at me and he says, always stay humble. You'll never get burned.
Nice.
It's kind of that old saying, what goes around comes around. You will get burned at some
You
point,
will
just
get
like you're
burned.
saying, right? You will
Yeah.
get burned. So
Yeah.
to stay in that grace, to stay in that ease, use your powers. It's no different than I say to people, if you go back, and the reason I use this is because it's just a teaching people now, is if you look at how the stories of when the Christ walked the planet, he didn't take credit for what was happening. And there was a humility and there was a non-judgment and there was a non-division that was going on. So you can see how it's all been manipulated through the years. So it's not about people don't go into, I'm just as a teachable moment. It's like, that's the humility and the kindness that we all hold superpowers within us. And when we have them, that you can never, there's always giving grace and thanks to the universal energies working through you, and to stay humble within it and to always understand it's that humility that's going to continue to grow your supernatural powers and strength. Because
Yeah.
it's not you and me doing it. We're the vessel. It's the energy that's coming through that we're allowing to come through to create those miracles in people's lives that people are doing all over the
100%.
world.
100%.
Yeah.
And like, like even though I feel like in my case, I've been blessed with so many wonderful things, I was like, look, I'm just the vessel. Like I'm a messenger.
Yeah.
Like it's not,
Not us.
okay, there's a part of me doing it, but
Yeah.
I can't take personal credit going, look at me, how wonderful I am, because that's not
Correct.
what this is all about.
Correct.
Like I've been through enough, challenge to go, that way doesn't work, this way does.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you do, you're humbled, and then the energy flows, and you're like, okay, this is what kind of going with the flow is, even though it may not make logical sense, which is where we began our conversation today. It doesn't make any logical sense why I'm doing this, or why I've moved country, and why I'm staying here, and why I've changed my work.
And
But
that's the key to being outside that circle. It's
yeah,
not going to make any sense. That's that knowing, right?
but as human beings, we want sense, right? We want
I
it to
know,
be sense,
because
but
we've been programmed for that.
we've been programmed. Okay.
We have been programmed to follow a pattern. You do this, you get that. You do this, you get that. But really, when you start working with the universal energies within you and the God within you, it's not going to make a lot of sense. That's why you go to the knowing and you just got to follow the knowing.
Now I've seen this in documentaries. I've read about this, but when you're experiencing it, it's a very different thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you hear it going, it made no sense, but I went and did it anyway. And it's a bit like saying, I don't know why I went there, but I went there and it just felt right. And then I met somebody, or I got a ticket into that concert or something like that. The amount of times things like that have happened to me growing up was amazing. I was like, I don't know why I just listened, but I just did that, and it was illogical.
because the universe works that way, right? It's
And the
not going to
universe
give
works in a
you
non-linear.
exactly. And it puts pieces together. And when you're ready, there's
Yeah.
another piece of the puzzle. And
Yeah.
but we're so trained to be structured, and that was done on purpose. So when we wake up and we're outside, we now are learning how to run with flowing versus structure.
But there's certain things like, structure for me is important in my life. Like I like have rituals, I have things that I do that give me structure, but it's the bit that allows the bits to flow in between, like the thread that goes through the needle, through the structures of
So I'll
saying these are
correct that
my.
because you're right. Okay, I'll correct that so make it clear because you're right. So we have our structure in terms of how we communicate, how we need to have our meditation, like how that makes us, but that's a
Yeah.
different structure. We're creating that ourselves to have communication. The structure I'm talking about is the structure we grow up in is like you're going to, get a job, you go to school, you learn this way, you don't go outside of the box. There's a fear structure that we're born into. Then there's a face structure, what you're talking about, that we move into when we break the fear structure. And then
So
you
when we
create
break the
your own
patterns of
meaning.
the fear structure, we move into the faith structure. So they're more your like disciplines that lead you to freedom. So structure, but one has an energy of fear perhaps, and the other one has an energy of faith.
Yeah, because you're now doing things that resonate for you, that work for you. Like they didn't teach you
Yeah.
meditation in school, did they?
No.
They don't teach you how to connect to the divine within. They don't teach you to have
No.
boundaries and be empowered and create and dream that you can do miracles and you can be all that you want to be. That's not taught in school because that's a fear structure. So you put a new structure in that works for James, which is a faith structure, which is your rituals, your routines, your walks. Like I'm like you, if I don't walk every day, my body's not happy. So it's we know what our body wants. So they're not really they're structures, but they're not. They're things we know that we're integrating because they make us happy and joyous and connecting.
Okay.
So it's no one
Uh,
saying to you, James, if you want to evolve, you have to do this, this, and this. You're like, what works for me? What structure do I want in my life versus what you were told?
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that's
super
powerful.
interesting. Yeah, because my daily habits and my rituals are like they make my world. They make my world so much more of a beautiful place to live from. And I get thrilled to do my shows, to do my podcast, to speak to people like your good self,
Yeah.
to, write and to create content and to uplift and work with my,
Yeah.
exclusive clients, right? And it's
Yeah.
just like, wow, I feel so blessed to be doing what I love to do and uplift. But
And
I have to
don't you
create the
find
structure of that
to do that?
to
And
do
don't
that.
you find now, like I find people say, well, it seems like you're kind of always working. I said, I don't work a day in my life. I
It's
love being
fun.
in the energy so much that I'm always being uplifted. So I said, I'm not really going to work. I'm always having a good time. Now, where I go to work, if you want to look at it as when you're doing the bin stuff, which, yeah, I don't like it. Nobody does, but that's part of your business, right? But so when you're out of the energy and I'm not in the energy, I don't feel so good. So I love
Mm.
staying in the energy. So there's a structure right there that I know my body loves it. And I just love being in the energy. And you love seeing people with their how they're evolving and they're moving and shifting
Yeah.
and that's joyous. So that's a new way of living that you and I both create and it's similar yet different based on what our bodies require in this lifetime.
So I just want to go back, like in closing here, because there's something here that I really like that you said. It's about the conviction. So where people can start to, um, what's the word here? Direct that universal energy in a very successful way. Let's just call it the beginning phase, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you haven't yet got the direction, if you haven't yet recognized that you're the director of your life and the main actor in your own story of your life, in your own movie, how would you start somebody on this process of realizing you can direct that universal energy to help you? So would you say, please sort out these green lights all the way, on the way to the grocery store, or how would you do it?
I just asked, it's interesting to give a statement while you were talking.
Yeah.
So they just actually, so what they downloaded was, so for people know I see, feel here, what they downloaded was to say, and I've never said it this way. Now I always like to give thanks. That's just me. You don't have to I'll be like, thank you, God. I know, love, and
Yeah.
understand. So that's just me. You can say whatever you want, but they're like, speak in a way of spirit. I require this, this, and this. And I know it's now done. And I'm holding that conviction that I know it's done. Thank you. It's done. Like it's here. So they say start there. I require, I know it's done now. And the
So
reason
I
I pulled,
require this, and this.
yeah,
I know it's done. Thank you.
thank you. They say keep something simple, and it has something to do with some of the listeners that are can get a little confused. It's like keep it very simple, and then there'll be other things that you'll feel afterwards of this is already here.
Okay. So I love what Tracy's just shared. I'd like to share with you something that I do that works for me. Similar, a little different. So, like on my way to the gym that I go to, I've got like a 10-minute drive to get to my amazing gym. And on the way there, I have to go through a few lights, right? And on previous occasions, there's been a few lights, like red lights and so forth. And, I'm all about the green lights. And I
Yeah.
always say, uh, I say it in a way, it's like universal God. I was like, wouldn't it be nice if you just gave me green lights all the way?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be nice? And the other day, literally, I arrived and it was red, and I just slowed the car down. Suddenly went green, and then the next one green, 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 green. So it was like 4 or 5 traffic lights green. Boom! I'm at the gym, and I was like, "How about that? How about that?" That made me feel amazing. It made me feel powerful, and it made me feel like loved. It made me feel cared for. It made me feel magical. But more importantly, it gave me the muscle to go, hey, I can keep doing this way, this works with this little small little thing that we can do.
The
So
other
there's
thing
no,
they just show that you
yeah,
did there that people can play with, and I played with this years
yeah,
ago. Like I think I was only awake for 3 years. Like I mean, like consciously doing the work. And I had to go on a trip, and I knew it was going to be really difficult. And it was that one that you don't want to go, but you need to go, and you're starting to learn to connect to the universe. And I walked into the hotel room, and I said, now then I couldn't say God because I was still thinking it was tied to man in the sky. Like I had very strict no, So I was like,
yeah, yeah.
universe, universe. If I need to do this, this, and this, and you want me to do this, turn the closet light on. And the light flipped on.
Yeah.
And I said, what? Then turn it off. The light went off. And I'm going to
Okay.
tell you, I remember that because that was probably 20 years ago.
Yeah.
That was a miracle. And
Yeah.
if I have a waiver in something, I go back to a miracle that happened in my life or something I asked for.
100%.
And I pull that forward so I don't doubt.
Yeah. So, by the way, as you evolve on your spiritual journey, you will feel a bit of doubt from time to time. And I want to share something exactly the same as what Tracy did to me. And this is how I quit, and I became plant-based, right?
Yeah.
I said this. I literally said this out loud. I said, universe, if you don't make this easy, I'm not going to do it. And I said the same with drinking. If you don't make this easy, I am not going to do it. Now, that seems quite a lot for people, like you might be having a drink problem, or you might be having an addiction problem of some sort, or some particular challenge of something. But that is where I began, very much like Tracy. And I said that, and I remember saying it very, very succinctly and clearly. And what happened after that was nothing short of a miracle, because within 4 months, I changed my diet and started eating plant-based, more organic foods.
Mm-hmm.
Number one. And the people whose houses that I went round to were in awe to try and cook me a plant-based meal. This is 20 years ago.
Wow.
I mean, this is a time when it wasn't even
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of like available. People are like, oh, you're vegetarian now?
You've been way
Yeah.
out. You were way out of the circle then, for sure.
Way out of the circle, right? And I was like, literally, oh my golly, I'm out on a limb here by myself, and I'm doing this, and I don't know why I'm doing it, but I am way out the circle. And
Yeah.
so I had to come from a place of like, I have to completely trust this force, like the universal force, which I was only just starting to stabilize with.
Yeah.
And then the drinking thing is like, I'm not gonna quit drinking
Yeah.
unless it's made easy. And my friends were like, oh yeah, James, do you want a pineapple juice? I'll be like, yeah. We'll get a pineapple juice on the rocks for our best friend here. Come on, come on. And I was like, oh my God, people are making this easy for me when previously this was like the hardest thing I had to deal with, right?
Right. Yeah.
And
That's
so
a miracle.
that was a miracle. Like, it's a miracle I'm still here. It's a miracle you're still here. And whoever's listening, it's probably a miracle you're still here. And you are a miracle, but you've got to use what Tracy has said
Yeah.
and hopefully enjoy something that we've talked about here today so that you can flip and apply it and get your own miracles, because you've got to keep that faith alive, because the doubts will creep in from time to time, but you've got to become so in tune with that essence of yourself that's divine and not forget it, because you will from time to time.
And we all will. And you know what? It's funny doing this work. People always say to me, "Well, you have this beautiful life." I said, "I do now." So does that mean you don't have any hiccups or challenges? I said, "Oh, heck no." I said it just gave me the skill to now get through a hiccup and challenge, which would have taken me maybe a year, 20 years ago, takes me a
Yeah,
couple of days now. And I said, that is a miracle if you keep doing this work.
yeah.
Yeah, it's huge.
Anyway, just in closing, guys, thank you, Tracy, for being on the show. What a conversation. What a
Always
conversation.
a blast.